Hey, so in this video I'm going to be showing how to do a repository in order to load this load and save and persist the this aggregate root, or the bank accounts in this case. So I can do a account repository, if I'm able to write it correctly, account repository. So I basically need two methods. A save method, this one is quite easy. So if I'm going to be persisting a bank account, I would need to receive it here, account. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to extract all the events that this account produced by doing uncommitted events to list. And then I'm going to persist them in the database. So I would be doing something like save in database, and after that I'm just going to be doing account dot commit, so that the state is again deleted, so that if I save it again there is nothing to save because I didn't change the state. In order to do the load, I would have an account load, and for that I would need the ID of the account. In this case it's just the ID that I'm using. It could also be something else, but the ID is the easiest one. And so I would need to load all events where aggregate or stream ID, it's also a common name, equals to ID, and this would give me a list of events. Here I'm just going to do a new list of events, and here it would be something like new account opened, and here there is some ID, some stuff, and then new account money transferred. In a bank account you can do many more stuff, or some other stuff like creating credit cards, changing overdraft fees, and closing the account, and many more things. Withdrawing money, depositing money. So, but it would be something like this. And afterwards I would just need to create a new account, and after doing that I would do a rehydrate and pass it all the events that's relevant to this account. And after that I can just return the account. So now you might be wondering, how am I going to, that's basically all that there is. This part of persisting these events in the database, usually they should not be persisted just like I've done it so far, or in this state, because they have two the information that is contained in them is to probably need some more information. So I could just create a new a record, and it would be called event descriptor, in which there are other informations that are relevant. For instance, I would have the aggregate ID. I could have also an event ID. This is quite useful. That would be, for instance, generated in the database as an identity, that it's just a sequential number. I could also convert this event to JSON and then just save it here, event data. And I could also persist something like the user that created this event, and something that is going to be needed for the process managers. It's going to be something like the correlation ID. So in this case, to save the events, I would do something like this. Event descriptor. Actually, I would do something like this. So I would go to each and every one of them and do a new event descriptor, in which I would just use the account ID. So for instance, the ID is private, so I can just change it to public, and the setter should be private. And the event ID would be given by the database, so I would not have to introduce something here if it's going to be an identity generated number. The event data, I can serialize it to JSON, so I would use this here and a JSON serializer. And here I would just serialize the event. And after that I would just create the user somehow, environment dot username, for instance, and the correlation ID. So by doing this, I can just afterwards persist these events. So with entity framework or something, context. So of course I'm not using entity framework here, but it would be something like save events add range events, something like this. So and notice that we are persisting the aggregate ID, and the events are going to have a sequential event ID. So in order to load them from the database, I could do something like, again using entity framework, I could do something like this: aggregate ID is like the ID, and then just order by, and this would be an ascending. And I didn't do a created date, but since I have the event IDs, I could just, so by doing this I make sure that they are in the correct ordering and not the other way around. So after having loaded this from the database, I can just rehydrate the event, rehydrate the aggregate root with the events that were persisted, and I have the aggregate root in the end with the current state. And then if I want to do another money transferred and I don't have enough money, I would get an exception. And that's all there is to repositories that save and persist and load event-based objects. So that's it for today. If you like, leave a comment or a like. Give me some feedback. Thank you. Bye.